Welcome to AI Speed, the show where AI-powered companies talk about what actually works in the market right now. Business doesn't move at internet speed anymore. It moves at AI speed. And the people who figure out how to turn models into money will own the next decade. I'm Evan J. Chalfin, founder of Luxhammer and growth partner to high-performing brands. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Ty Miller, Senior Director of Channel Sales at Alcatraz AI. Ty operates in a really interesting space, bringing AI into physical security. At Alcatraz, he's helping organizations rethink access control entirely, moving from badges and credentials to facial authentication that's both more secure and more seamless. Ty, thank you for being here.
Yeah, Evan, thanks for having me. Really excited to join you today.
So you spent over 15 years in the security industry. What led you into this space, and how did you end up focusing on AI-driven access control?
I hate to date myself, but it's probably north of 20 at this point. It's been a fun ride in the security space. I've seen it as a systems integrator, taking different components and designing systems for end customers, and then also on the manufacturing side of our space now with Alcatraz. And like I said, it's been a really, really fun ride. I enjoy kind of helping people develop those solutions that keep their spaces safe, but also more convenient and user friendly. And so it's a little bit of the best of both worlds, I guess I'll say.
Yeah, maybe digging a little bit deeper, what makes Alcatraz's approach unique compared to traditional access control systems?
Yeah, so we're really helping companies modernize their space. In the security world, there is a lot of legacy technology. There's folks that are still using cards and keypad readers and things that you probably saw in movies from the 80s and 90s. But Alcatraz is really helping revolutionize that portion of our market, and we're helping people move to a more modern credential, utilizing the unique power of the human face. So we do feel like the future of our security world is where people are leveraging the face as the primary identity driver throughout their organization.
So, from what you're seeing, what's the core problem organizations are dealing with today when it comes to physical security?
Well, like I mentioned, trying to find a way to move from those legacy systems, because security really is an inherent part of any building, of any organization. And so it's kind of difficult to push pause and make drastic changes. So moving through legacy technology, leveraging more modern technology, leveraging the cloud, and trying to get their organizations into the 21st century is one challenge that I see a lot of organizations deal with. And then just trying to assimilate that change throughout their organization when you have the status quo and this is the way we've always done things, so it must be right, it must be the way forward. But getting people to see that they can leverage AI and they can leverage other tools to make their lives easier, more efficient, and what we like to say is reduce friction within their environment.
Absolutely. So, in your role leading channel sales, where are you spending most of your time right now?
Yeah, so I run our channel sales program at Alcatraz. So I have the joy of working with all of our partners and educating, training, assisting, helping make sure that they have the tools that they need, the education, the training that they need to go execute and effectively install our product in the field. And it's fun times. We're growing pretty significantly, and with that come new partnerships and developing the partnerships that we have and being more strategic with them. So yeah, that's really where I'm spending most of my time is with our partners that are taking our product to market, and are really the face of Alcatraz in the field.
So, who do you serve best? What's the ideal customer profile that gets the most value from Alcatraz?
We really live across many vertical markets. We are seeing significant growth in the enterprise space, everything from data centers to financial institutions, life sciences, healthcare. But we also play in sort of that mid-market space. We do a lot within the higher education community, hospitals, local businesses. So I wouldn't say our product is pigeonholed into a one size fits all or a singular market, but I would say that the enterprise space, the Fortune 500 market, is really our bread and butter and really where we live and perform.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm curious, what's been your biggest challenge this year in bringing AI into physical security environments?
Well, I think, helping folks understand the different types of AI that are out there and how they can be leveraged. There's a lot of fear with new technology, right? There's a lot of fear with things that are new or unknown. AI is no different in that realm. And so there's a lot of folks trying to figure out how they can leverage all of this data that they're gleaning from their security systems. There's an enormous amount of data that customers capture with their security platforms, and then trying to figure out how they can leverage that to make, take actionable intelligence throughout their organization, and but also just make things more efficient, make things faster, make their employees more comfortable, make it more user friendly. And that's really where Alcatraz shines. Alcatraz helps employees and employers not just modernize their workforce, but allow their employees to seamlessly move throughout their buildings while still keeping things very secure. So that's really at the intersection of what we provide is increased security and increased convenience. And normally those two things don't go hand in hand. Usually they're at the expense of one another, right? If you want things to be more secure, well, you're going to sacrifice convenience. And if you want it to be more convenient, it's probably going to be less secure. We actually provide both. And so we're helping companies modernize, but then enjoy those benefits at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. So, what's a common misconception organizations have about facial authentication?
Great question. Yeah, a lot of folks sort of lump us into this facial recognition bucket because that's the buzzword in the market is facial recognition. There are a lot of products that perform facial recognition. We're different. I mean, we've coined this term facial authentication. Actually, Alcatraz was the pioneer of that term. But facial recognition is really centered around covert video surveillance. You're covertly surveying maybe a sea of faces, and you're trying to pick faces out of that group and identify who they are and cross-reference a database of known faces to see if maybe there's somebody on a bad guy list or there's someone on a watch list that you're trying to identify. That's very different than what Alcatraz does in what we call facial authentication. So in facial authentication, it's purpose driven for using your face as a credential to gain secure entry into a space. That's really, really what we're doing. There's nothing covert about it because it's an opt in program. So a lot of what we do is educating the market on the difference between facial recognition and facial authentication, and then how facial authentication can be leveraged without infringing on privacy regulations and things that large organizations are genuinely concerned about.
Absolutely. And so, how do you compete in a space where traditional badge systems are so deeply entrenched?
We actually operate as a bolt-on to traditional badge systems, right? Access control systems. So we're able to tie into those as like I said, a bolt-on card reader. And without, the organization doesn't really have to forklift an entire system. They can enhance their system by adding Alcatraz to it with very minimal disruption to their day to day. So, even given that it's a legacy environment, there's a lot of room for growth in that legacy environment. And we make that easy by providing a solution that can tie into what they already have and what they already use. So they can start to morph into this more modern approach while still having a legacy system on the back end.
Yeah, and you mentioned kind of the fear around AI. What creates hesitation for organizations when adopting AI driven security solutions?
Yeah, I think folks are just hesitant about new technology in general, but especially when it involves a biometric profile. Understanding how that data is being collected, where it's being stored, who has access to it. Is it encrypted? Is it encrypted throughout the process? And those are things that we shine in all of those areas. So we have a privacy by design approach where we're anonymizing the data. The data that gets collected, first of all, it's encrypted the entire time that it's with Alcatraz. But the data itself was very minimal in terms of what we collect, and then it's also anonymized. So you actually can't go into Alcatraz and look anybody up by name or company or department or any of those typical identifiers that you would use. So we're collecting a very minimal data set. We're anonymizing the data, and then we're securing it. We're encrypting it end to end. So again, it's an educational thing for our customers. But once they understand how we're securing it, and we take a privacy by design approach, it usually eases those concerns and allows us to move forward with those customers.
Absolutely. So, what does success look like over the next year for Alcatraz from a channel and revenue standpoint?
Really just continuing to help customers move away from legacy thinking, a legacy approach to authenticating identification at their kiosks, their check-ins, their receptions. And then for their employees, employees moving throughout their space, giving them a more modern approach to authenticating the same way that they authenticate on their phone every day, right? Most people are very used to utilizing their face or some biometric to gain access to their personal device today, right? Yet people are still walking around their corporate campus using a plastic card that was developed in the early 80s, right? So think about that. You know what I mean? That the speed of technology and how fast it's moving, yet people in the corporate environment are still authenticating day to day using that plastic card that's been around for 40 years. So, we really do feel like the future is a place where people are utilizing their face as a credential. And it's a much more secure, authentic means of, identifying the right people are in the right spaces. And so for us, that's success. Seeing that come to fruition and seeing that the adoption of that increase significantly over the next few years.
Absolutely. So, from a channel perspective, what's working best right now in driving pipeline?
We're seeing significant growth across just about every major vertical market. Data centers are on fire right now in terms of the amount of resources and attention that's being placed on data centers. So we're seeing a lot of success in that market as well, or obviously in data centers, but financial sector, the life sciences space, really any regulated market that has heavy regulation around ensuring that the right people are in the right areas at the right times. That's where we perform very well. But then you have more unregulated markets like higher ed, where it's convenience driven. And people want to make sure that people are able to get in and out of spaces very easily, but securely at the same time. So it's hard to give you a specific answer on one market where we're seeing the most impact or the most growth because they all seem ripe for this evolution of the credential, right? The credential moving from a physical component to your identity, who you are, and it's exciting times, right? We're in the midst of this evolution within the physical security space.
Yeah, it is exciting. So, what trends are you seeing in AI and physical security that feel real versus,
Yeah. Well, I mean, for years we've been talking about security moving towards cloud-based systems, and the rest of the world kind of laughs at that because cloud's been being leveraged in other industries for many years now. It's real within the physical security space. People are leveraging the cloud for their access control systems, their video systems, their identity management systems, just about anything within the security space. And so that's certainly a real trend. And then, in our world, in the biometric space, people are really leveraging biometrics to get away from using legacy credentials, like I keep talking about. And, it's for years, it was sort of a back of house thing where you might see a fingerprint reader on a data center door or somewhere in the back of the house. But now, because the product is so easy to deploy, easy to enroll, and then the user experience is so good, that we're seeing people deploy this throughout their organization, right? Front of house. We're seeing it in lobbies and front entrances and executive suites and elevators and turnstiles and everywhere you could imagine throughout an organization. Anywhere that you would traditionally see a badge reader, we're now seeing facial authentication being deployed. So we do have companies that we work with that deploy, we call it street to suite, right? Where they're using their face as a credential from the time they approach the facility in their vehicle to fire a vehicle gate through the front entrance, through a set of turnstiles, maybe through an elevator lobby, and all the way up to their executive suite. And that's a real thing that companies have now deployed at scale. And it's no longer just this back of house biometric device that's sort of hidden from the rest of the organization.
Yeah, that's really exciting. So, what challenges are you preparing for as the market evolves?
Well, we're constantly looking at the privacy landscape and the evolving legal landscape around biometric data laws and how people are leveraging biometric technology. So we're constantly trying to, build up our education library on our ability to educate folks on what we do and how we do it differently. But that certainly is something that we contest with every day. And then, just how people perceive AI and how AI is being leveraged within in the workplace. Again, that's another challenge that we have to contend with. We feel like we're doing it ethically, and all of our data is collected ethically, and our algorithm that we utilize is static, so it's not changing based on data that we collect. So those are the types of things that we have to educate the general public about so that they feel comfortable leveraging and utilizing this modern technology.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if we were to have this conversation again in 12 months, what would need to happen for you to feel like it was a big win for the company?
Yeah, I mean, we're headed there. We're seeing significant growth. We're seeing more and more companies understand this new technology and figure out how they can leverage it. More education is happening at our end customers in terms of awareness within their legal or privacy departments and understanding that this privacy by design approach does work and it does solve the hurdle that they once were up against with using biometrics. So, I think we're headed there, Evan. I imagine if we talk in a year, we'll be talking about the success that we've had and the number of new Fortune 100 companies that have adopted this technology at scale. And I think that's the real key is how many organizations are really doing it at scale, right? Are some, dabbling? Are they testing it? Is it in, some pilot form? Or has it been rolled out across their organization? All of their employees leverage it and use it every day when they come into work. That's the real litmus test of whether or not we have found success.
Yeah. Well, I certainly hope we talk again and you get there. That would be very exciting. And
Likewise.
so that's it for today's episode of AI Speed. A huge thank you to Ty Miller for sharing his insights into how AI is transforming physical security and access control. If you're building or leading an AI native company or a service business that uses AI under the hood and you care about revenue adoption and market share, make sure to subscribe to AI Speed. Thanks for listening. Until next time, keep building, keep selling, and keep moving at AI Speed.